Hello beautiful, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tracy. I am Blackberry's mom. Blackberry is sitting on the bed behind me. You will see a little black dog jump on and off the bed, but just ignore her. Today we're going to discuss week 4 and 5 of Financial Peace University. Alright guys, I asked you in the last video if you were interested in me continuing going over the weeks of this class since I have graduated. You said yes, so that's what we're going to do. But I wanted to put week 4 and 5 together because to me they were so closely related. When I actually filmed this video before a few days ago. When I filmed the video, I was actually meshing week 4 and 5 together unintentionally. So I decided I would just kind of refilm it. So week 4 was all about dumping debt, and just from reading Total Money Makeover, I knew that that would be about the debt snowball, which is a really cool concept, and we'll get more into that in a little bit later in this video. So this particular lesson was 1 hour and 10 minutes, so it was 70 minutes. It was the longest one of all 9 weeks because I really think that he wanted to drill in us the truths of credit and having debt. So he really talked about how debt and borrowing is a relatively new concept, and how debt had been marketed to us many forms and aggressively since 1960, that even imagining living without it requires a complete paradigm shift. That was an interesting statement for me to make because I personally don't ever remember not having things on credit. I remember my mom had a furniture set from a furniture store called Royal, and as a little girl she would pull up front, and as I got a little older she would allow me to go in and make the payments for her in cash. And it was so long ago it was so long ago that it wasn't even done on a computer. The little old lady behind the counter would just kind of take her carbon paper, and she had her card and then my mom's receipt that she would send out the store with me, showing that my mom had payments and showing the little total going down and down every time we made the payment. I don't think the payment was made weekly. I really think it was made bi-weekly from what I can remember, but I remember vividly doing that. So even at a young age, the concept of not having furniture on credit was not something that I'm personally used to. So this class was interesting for me because that drew back to me for me that was my first time remembering or experiencing having something on credit versus paying for something in cash. So I didn't have a concept of that even for a little girl. So that definitely would take a paradigm shift in my life to really see that and feel that way. He even talked about JCPenney. For those of you not in the United States, JCPenney is kind of an all-in-one store. They don't sell food, but they do sell like clothes, appliances, furnishings, home like window treatments and blinds. Even some JCPenney's now have Sephora's inside of it, so you can buy cosmetics and things like that in JCPenney. But he got the nickname, his nickname was James Cash Penny. Now, I haven't personally done my own research on this, so you'll have to Google this and let me know in the comments if this is actually correct or not, if I'm remembering what I learned from class correctly. But I wrote that here. Yeah, James Cash Penny. JCPenney was his nickname because he was so tight. He was so cheap. His friends nicknamed him that to make fun of him because he didn't believe in borrowing anything. He didn't believe in any credit. He believed in paying cash for things. Even when he opened his store, he had a statement that cash was for foolish people. I mean, that borrowing was for foolish people. So that's something I found really interesting. Now, this is not a religious course. Dave Ramsey he uses, I guess, Bible principles to kind of bring home some of his points. I know some of you that watch this may not believe in God or may not be a Christian, and that's totally okay. Some of these things are just life lessons, common sense that's not so common. But there's a scripture in here for those of you who don't mind. I want to read to you. It's Proverbs 22:7, and it says, "The rich rule over the poor." And this is the point I wanted to really get. This is what I got. It says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." That really is true in so many forms, because just me thinking of the debt that I have, which is relatively small, I'm sure, compared to most people, but I still feel just weighed down and just like I can't get free of it because it's still there. So to see that visually in the scriptures, I am sure I have read that scripture hundreds and hundreds of times, but it hit home for me this time in the space that it's in. So in this particular chapter, he goes into credit card myths, car myths, lending myths, credit score myths, and then he goes into the biggest myths of all. So I'm just going to hit on a few of them that kind of rang true for me. And if you want a specific video on the truths and myths that are in this chapter, let me know in the description box below, and I will do a specific video just on that. But one of the ones in the credit card myths that I found interesting was you need a credit card to rent a car or to make purchases online. Well, the making purchases online, I know is false because I wear that debit card out all the time. But the card to rent a car is what I've always heard people talk about, and it makes sense that you don't need a credit card to rent a car because your debit card has the same major credit card logos on them now, and they have all the chips and everything now, so you can just use your debit card to rent a car. I don't know if you can rent a car with cash. I don't know if they've gotten that advanced yet, but I don't see why you can't use just your debit card to rent a car. Now this one is a truth. When you use plastic instead of cash, you spend more because you don't feel it. And then I put a little side note that says the ouchie moments with cash, and that's true. So he talked about McDonald's being the first fast food restaurant to take plastic, and the reason they did it was a marketing ploy or stunt, because they know that statement to be truth. When you swipe, you go into McDonald's and you're gonna get a $5 meal, and they always ask you specific questions. So it's not that they always ask you, can we get you anything else? They usually say something like, would you like an apple pie? Would you like to supersize that? And you'll say yes if you want the apple pie, or yes you want to supersize, because you're gonna swipe your debit card. If you physically had placed an order for $5 and you have a $5 meal and they ask you, do you want apple pie and do you want to supersize it, you're gonna say no because you only have that $5 in your hand. I found that to be very interesting in the way things are marketed to us, and I guess you really don't think about it until you look at it this way, and how it's so designed for you everywhere you go, everything you do, to spend more money than you actually have already. So I found that to be very true in my case, and I thought it was extremely interesting. And then in the car myths, he talked about how car payments are a way of life and you will always have one. Well, even in my weird little financial life, I know that's not true. The car that I had before this one, I had paid off, and I didn't have a car note for almost 3 years. And the only reason I did end up getting this car because I was putting out as much a month into the repairs of that car that I could have just gone ahead and bought a new car, which is what I did. But one of my greatest joys in life was not having that car note for those 3 years, and I cannot wait to be at that place again. So you guys, this is the one that I thought was really interesting, and this I think will show you just how deep some of these lessons really get. So here under the lending myth, I'm going to read this myth and this truth for you. So myth: by co-signing a loan, you are helping out a friend or a relative. That's a myth. The truth is, the bank requires a cosigner because the person isn't likely to repay. So be ready to pay the loan and have your credit damaged because you are on the loan. I thought that was very good. Now, that is not something that affects me personally. I've never had anything where someone co-signed for me, and I've never been a co-signer for someone else, but I've seen it done so many times around me, and it's always been a very interesting situation, and I've seen relationships be ruined for that. So I really thought that that was really, really interesting. So he broke down all of these myths and broke down all these truths to get your mindset to a point of understanding how you can live debt-free by creating within you a thinking process that will manifest definitely a paradigm shift in how you think and how you feel relationally with money and credit. And so now at the end of that lesson, he gave steps to get out of debt. So I'm going to read each one of these steps out of debt to you because I just feel like it was really encouraging. And if you're going to go through and tell us what are truths and what are myths, then how do we create something that will help us to stay on the truth pattern and get out of the myth pattern? And so steps out of debt, there are 5 of them. So I'm going to read all 5 of them to you. Number 1, stop borrowing more money. I say the word borrowing weird, so bear with that. Stop borrowing more money. 2, you must save money. 3, you got to sell something. 4, get a part-time job or work overtime. And then 5, prayer really works. And it really, really does. For me, the borrowing money, okay, so when I think of borrowing money, I think of like going to a family member or a friend getting money. For me, like going to the bank and getting money has never been an issue, but I had to really think about it. I did that with my car. The car that I have now, I have a car note, which meant I borrowed money from the bank to get this car. A couple of things I have in my home I use a credit card for, so I borrowed money from a credit card company to get these things. So I have to stop borrowing money, which I have both the credit cards I have not used them, oh gosh, in probably a year. I haven't used either one of them in a year. So that is not an issue for me as far as that concerned, and I haven't gone to the bank to get anything else other than the card that I have, but that still was borrowing money. So for me, I have to stop borrowing money. The second thing is I must save money. Now, I've told you guys in the last video that I do not have baby step 1 done, which is my emergency fund. So I personally don't have anything to sell because I'm not a really big spender. Like I don't like go shopping. I have no luxury handbags. I have 1 pair of jeans, so it's not like I have a bunch of clothes. If you've been following my channel for a little while, you know I just kind of went shopping in May for my birthday and got some clothes because all my clothes had holes in them and Paula could not repair some of them anymore. And so I have very simple furniture. I don't have a lot of things, so I don't have anything to sell. In order for me to take the necessary steps to get out of debt, I would have to work overtime, which is not allowed on my job, which means that I do have to get a second job. I've been really going back and forth with this for a while in my head. So I decided to do step 5, which is pray. And I feel like I have received an answer about that. I will share more with you on that later. I may just do a separate video about that. But getting a part-time job or a better primary job is what's going to have to be for me, because when I watch Dave Ramsey on YouTube, a lot of times I hear him tell people you don't have a debt problem, you have an income problem. And that's truly where I am, and that's the first thing that little brother and I talked about on our very first meeting, was you have an income problem. You don't have a lot of debt, you just really don't make enough money. So that's just kind of where I am with that. So then we got into baby step 2, which is pay off your debt using the debt snowball. So the way the debt snowball works is just like you would think of a real snowball. You know how if you have a little snowball, you roll it down the hill, it starts off small and gets bigger and bigger. It's the same concept with the debt snowball. You want to write all of your bills down, and then you're going to list them from the smallest to the largest. So if for me, my smallest is a small medical bill that I have. Then I have another medical bill that's just a little bit bigger than that one. Then I have 2 credit cards. Then I have my car, and then I have this huge hospital bill. So I would pay off the smallest medical bill that I have first. Then once I take that, and one of the things I want you to remember, that in this debt snowball, you are paying minimum payments on everything that you have. So don't take every dime you have and put it just on one bill. You're going to pay all of your minimum payments, and then you're going to just take extra money on the smallest bill and get that paid down first. So say for instance, at the end of the month, you have an extra $30. For me, I'm going to put that extra $30 on that first medical bill in addition to the minimum payment that I've already been paying. So now once I get that completely paid off, I'm still going to pay the minimum payment on my second smallest debt, and I'm going to add that additional money that I was paying on to my first bill, the whole amount. I don't have no extra money now. I'm taking all of this amount, my $30 plus the minimum payment from the first bill, and now I'm applying that all to the second bill in addition to the minimum payment on that second bill. So regardless of the interest amount, the reason he says you're going to pay out the smallest debt first is because once you get that smallest debt off, you began to see that this is really working, that this is a possibility that you can get out of debt. So at the end of each class, there is this little part down here that's a 1-minute takeaway, and that's the end of every single chapter that we've gone through. So for me, what I wrote down, part of what I wrote down for my 1-minute takeaway is I have to find a better primary job, and I have to find a second job, and I put an exclamation point behind find the second job. And then I also put down that I have to focus. I have to be very, very focused. We are going to go into week 5, and that is buyer beware. So when I was really going over this lesson when I did the first video, I kept pulling in things from lesson 5, because for me, if he's showing us how to dump debt, and you're showing that there are so many ways that we are marketed to and there's so many myths, then buyer beware is all about how you are advertised to. You know what I'm saying? So okay, so he was just talking about how advertising really works. So one of the things that he had everyone do, he said, raise your hand if you were born after 1971. That would include me. I was born in 1974. So if you're born after 1971, he was like, do you remember the TV show Beverly Hillbillies? And everybody was like, yeah. So he was like, let's sing the theme song. So everyone sang the theme song verbatim. He said for all the years that the Beverly Hillbillies ran, it ran on Wednesday nights. I think he said for once they changed it to Thursday night and ratings went down, so they put it right back on Wednesday night. He was like, so many of you guys were born after that television show was off the air. It was off the air 3 years before I came along, but I was sitting in class singing the song with everyone else, and he said, we know this by reruns, but he was like, it was so drilled into our head that even though we were not born in that era, we know it. And then he went through, he did several different jingles from McDonald's, just different brands. I think he did M&M's, that we all know these jingles. and he gave the year that marketing was actually put into place, and it was definitely before my time and so many other people in the room time. So we are marketed to heavily. One of the things that we have here, I want to actually read these two little paragraphs to you. Okay, TV ads are incredibly expensive. A typical 30-second national TV commercial costs nearly $300,000 to produce. That's $10,000 per second. By contrast, the cost to produce an entire hour of prime-time public television is about the same, $300,000, which is $83 per second. So it's all about product positioning. So basically what they're saying is, if you're watching, I'm just going to say How to Get Away with Murder. He's saying that How to Get Away with Murder may cost about $300,000 to produce, but the McDonald's commercial that you get for 30 seconds also costs $300,000. And I'm just using these two things as an example. I don't know the exact numbers of each one of those, but I thought that was extremely interesting that they're actually spending more on marketing to you during that hour of television than the actual television show itself. So you are constantly being bombarded with all of these different marketing ploys and try to get you to buy more and do different things. So he just really talked about gaining power over your purchases. And I'm just going to read a few things that he has here. There's another scripture that is here also. I'm going to read that to you really quickly, because it was another one that I thought that was interesting. It is Proverbs 14:29. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. And folly, the definition of folly is a foolish action. So when you are patient and you save your money to get those things, even if it was advertised to you, then you will have that thing. You're free. You don't have the weight on you of owing someone or owing someone for it. It's just completely done for you. You get to fully enjoy it. So he gave some strategies for wise buying decisions, and I thought you guys might find this is interesting. Wait overnight before making a purchase. Carefully consider your buying motive. No amount of stuff equals contentment or fulfillment. Never buy anything that you don't understand. Consider the opportunity cost of your money and seek counsel from your spouse. So the biggest takeaway from these two lessons together for me is the fact that now that you've done baby step 1, which is you have your $1,000 in your savings account if you make more than $30,000 a year. If you make less than $30,000 a year, you have $500 in your emergency fund. And you're starting on baby step 2, which is paying down your debt in the debt snowball. The reason I felt like this chapter went so well with that is because the goal of getting out of debt is staying out of debt. And if you understand how you are marketed to, then you don't want to fall back into those patterns. So that's why I felt like these two lessons will be good to discuss together. So that is all I had to discuss with you today. Thank you so much for joining. Please leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. Let me know if you guys are interested in seeing the video where I just only talk about myths and truths. I would love to do that for you if it's something you want to see. And give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye, beautiful.